Well, ladies and gentlemen, we move swiftly on to our next session under the title of Next Generation Business Leaders. Well, CG Corp Global and Danube Group are companies that have had a huge impact. And today, both companies have moved beyond their foundations to welcome a second generation. And ladies and gentlemen, I am joined today on the stage here, live in person, by that second generation. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm welcome to Varun Chaudhary, Managing Director of CG Corp Global. A very warm welcome. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm welcome to Adel Sajan, Group Managing Director of Danube Group. Well, gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you all. And what a pleasure it is to be sharing the stage with you, first of all, and having you both here on the stage together. Absolutely fascinating, and such an interesting topic as well, the next generation, because it really does affect so many different businesses here in the UAE and in India, of course, as well. Right, I thought we'd start off with you, Adel. Tell us a little bit more, for those who are watching maybe online, for our audience here, tell us a little bit more about the Danube Group, and also, how have you approached your role as this second generation then as well?
Thank you, Laura, and first of all, thank you everyone for having me over here. So Danube Group was started by my father and my uncle almost 28 years ago. So when they came to Dubai, they started with nothing. And obviously hard work, a little bit of luck, and some good strategies has grown the group to what it is today. Today we have a revenue of about $1.2 billion with three main businesses, which is building materials, retail, and property development. 4,000 employees, and we're present globally across 30 countries. Talking about myself, when I graduated, I had a couple of options of where I wanted to work in the company. And I chose to enter into the retail business. Back then, the retail business contributed about 7% of the turnover of the group, which was very small. And we were actually losing about $3.5 million a year. And my father, the chairman, was actually wanting to get out of retail. He's like, look, this is not my cup of tea. And I came in, I was like, look, this is where I feel I can add some value. So give me a few years to try and turn it around. And I think that decision really paid off, because today Danube Home is one of the fastest growing home improvement retailers in the region, and it's become a cash cow for the company.
A true success story. Absolutely wonderful to hear. Varun, very quickly over to you. Tell us a little bit more about CG Corp Group, and also how have you approached your role as this second generation of the company?
Right. Thank you, Laura. We moved to Nepal about 150 years back from India. So we are actually third generation now. Yeah. We're the only multinational out of the country. We are present in about 50 countries. Quite a diversified group into FMCG, banking, telecom, hospitality, real estate, infrastructure, and few more verticals. I primarily look after the group's foods business, which is the noodles that we make called YY. So we produce about 3 billion packets a year. And so that's been my driving force. I drive that. I drive the real estate vertical, the cement, and also the agro. So that's about the group. Now, coming to the role of the second or third generation, however you want to put it, obviously it's a very, very challenging role, considering the fact that the chairman of the group, my father, he's taken this company to such a level and has set such high benchmark that for us to even catch up is a big deal. So I take every day as it comes. I don't, get into over adventure, let me put it this way. I do things in a very stable and a very focused way, still under his guidance.
It's going to be very interesting to hear, how you guys manage under that pressure a little bit later on. But first and foremost, tell us a little bit more about your expansion internationally with Danube Group. What's been happening in terms of your expansion plans?
I'll talk about the retail side of it, which is Danube Home. So one of the things that we do is we have a franchise business we started a few years ago, And we've got really good traction because there are a lot of underdeveloped countries around the world where they don't have the kind of retail standards that you find in Dubai. And there are a lot of people with money. So we franchise our Danube home business. We've started getting a lot of traction recently. We are present right now in about 12 countries. We have 20 stores. And I think hopefully by end of next year, we'll be having about 37 to 38 stores in 22 countries. My dream or vision for our global business, maybe it's a little too big, but I want to have a presence of Danube or Danube Home everywhere where a flight of Emirates flies to from Dubai, at least every country. So that's the goal I've given the team. I don't know how many years it might take, but at least it keeps us going.
Well, some very impressive growth already, and you have to have those big visions in order to make it happen, don't you? Varun, we're witnessing hugely impressive growth as well with CG Corp Group at the moment. Tell us about some of the factors underpinning those ambitions as well.
Sure. As a group, obviously, we are in a good acquisition spree where we're acquiring hotels. We've recently acquired a telecom company, but coming to my vertical that I handle, we already have 26 plants globally of our noodles that we produce. We are getting into, obviously, expansion and addition of capacities in various states in India. Internationally, we are in Kazakhstan, Serbia, Bangladesh, and I was setting up in Egypt. But recently, we've just acquired a unit in Russia, which is historically quite a strong brand called GB Foods. So with that expansion and with that acquisition, we do feel that our growth of the East European business is going to propel. Similarly, this acquisition has also taught me that, starting greenfield vis-a-vis acquiring companies, certainly acquiring companies is something which is in our radar, and that's where I'm aggressively looking at in Africa, in South America, in Asia. So, that's my next probably immediate objective. And probably in the next 2 to 3 years, we are definitely looking at going public as well.
Wow,
yeah.
Very interesting. Some very promising markets there as well. Let's talk a little bit more about the role of digitalization, of course, in COVID times as well. What has the role of digitalization played within the Danube Group, and how have you managed that?
So e-commerce is something which we've always looked at. Actually, we were one of the first companies in the home improvement industry to launch e-commerce almost 10 years ago. But it's only over the last 3 years that we've given it some real focus. And thank God we did, because when COVID happened, because a lot of the stores were shut, so our e-commerce sales during that period spiked by 400%. And we had been spending a lot of time and resource in developing that platform, so that really paid off at the right time. Now, selling furniture online is a little more challenging when compared to selling electronics or fashion, where either you know the brand or it's not that expensive, people want to touch and feel, so it's a lot harder. But if you compare and look at the industries in the West, like you have Wayfair in the West doing a revenue of $8 billion, so they've got it right. So our vision for the e-commerce businesses, we still see that there's a gap in the home furnishing industry when it comes to e-commerce, and we're really spending a lot of time in technology, in people, in really trying to become the Wayfair of Middle East, whether it's AI, virtual reality, giving some kind of 3D modeling, giving online designing, there are a lot of different features, and I think it's just a matter of time where the technology will be right, where people will be, at least a set of people will be more comfortable in buying even things like furniture for their house.
Varun, tell us about some of the older company traditions that you still feel particularly attached to, and also what sort of pressure do you feel as this next generation? You've got to take the reins.
Right.
What sort of pressure does that mean for you?
Of course, so let me answer the first part. The value system and sort of the rules and the discipline, particularly discipline, that's been set out by the chairman, my father, is pretty strong. So the key thing for us is to discipline ourselves first, even before we start talking about our colleagues, peers, or even the employees. So one thing which he is a true believer of is he is completely against taking debt. So that's one thing which I think has really helped the group to probably reach this level of growth is we have never taken debt. Whatever we've been able to sort of internally accrue, we're growing with that. And on the hindsight, when I look at it, it's a blessing for us. So that's one thing which I will continue to do. Number two, in terms of pressure, obviously, there's a famous saying in India and in our part of the world that the first generation makes it, the second generation maintains it, and the third generation breaks it. So you can understand the pressure, especially I'm in. Firstly, you're trying to live up to the benchmark which your father's created, and secondly, you are constantly being chased by this so-called theory. So I want to prove that wrong, and by God's grace, I think so I'm doing a little bit well.
It sounds like you're doing incredibly well. But yeah, how do you manage that pressure? How do you manage those expectations from your family?
Well, like I said, I take every day as it comes. I motivate myself. I don't ever let myself feel that any negativity or any negative pressure is pulling me down. I try to discipline myself as much as I can. I think these are some of the key fundamentals you need to have in place. I think everything will fall in place.
Very good words of advice there. Adel, what sort of new approach do you think is needed by this next generation then? Is there a new approach that is needed?
In our generation, I feel the business industry in any sector is changing a lot faster than it was when my father did it. So everything is changing super fast. And if you're not able to keep up, and if you're not able to create something that's relevant to the consumers, you're going to be left behind. So that's something that should be keeping everyone up at night. So what we've done in our company, one of the strategies that we've devised we've created two sets of teams. One is who takes care of your day-to-day operations, your daily P&Ls, your sales targets. And then we've created a strategy team, within taking out some key people, adding in some new blood who are fresh, we're young. And the objective of the future team is to think beyond, think what's going to happen 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and how your business is going to be ready to adapt to the change. And one of the mantras we follow in our company work culture is that the only thing constant is change. And if you don't keep evolving, if you don't keep up to what's happening around, it's just a matter of time before somebody else who's quicker, who's faster, who's more agile, and who's more relevant will take you over, and it's going to be too late then, because then you've got to take one big drastic step. So it's small steps regularly, where you can try and react to customers in a better way.
Varun, you've got a huge number of business divisions under your company umbrella. How has this type of diversity helped you through turbulent times then?
Well, pandemic has taught each one of us how to survive, how each vertical to survive independently. But with this kind of diversity, it's two sides of the same coin. People, first of all, say that with such a diversified business, where's your focus? But what we feel is that this diversified business has actually helped us, create a separate team, a very dedicated team to each of our verticals. So there is no crisscross and there's no cross-subsidization between one vertical or the other. So each vertical has shown that they've been able to sustain, they've been able to grow. Maybe the pace of growth, maybe 1920, but overall, we've seen that no vertical has been left behind. So during these times, obviously, the vertical which took a bad hit was the hospitality. But that's where the corporate setup, they sort of came in and they rescued that vertical.
And it seems that hospitality sector now is really booming.
It's coming back. It's coming back on its feet. Yeah, but the food sector did extremely well. We had a good inning, but last 3 quarters, the input cost was so high that now that's becoming a challenge. Yeah, now that's becoming a challenge. So that's something which we are constantly trying to mitigate, and trying to work out solutions.
Interesting. Yeah. Moving over to you, Adel, tell us about COVID. How tough has that been for you and your business?
Well, the last, almost 2 years has been a complete roller coaster ride because, beginning of quarter two last year, suddenly half or more of most of our stores are shut, and there's no business school in the world that teaches you how to deal with zero revenue. So then there was a demand challenge and how we got to keep up with that. And suddenly when businesses opened up, because we're from the home segment, everybody was working from home. There was a huge surge in the home industry. Suddenly there's this huge demand, and then the suppliers are shut. So, being dynamic, trying and predict what's going to happening. I remember I told my finance head in June when the business picked up, I'm like, people are buying garden furniture in summer. So if people are buying it today, what's going to happen in winter? Let's double down on that. And he's a little conservative person. He's like, no, things are uncertain. But sometimes you got to go with your gut. You got to be dynamic, and you got to, bet on the right things. And it worked for us because, there was a huge demand for home products, especially post-June. And, last year for us was extremely well, even though we had challenges. So that was one side of the business. But the second and most important aspect of COVID for us was the health aspect. Now, since we're in the retail business, we have a lot of our sales staff and delivery drivers who are in direct contact with customers. So the health of our sales staff, our delivery people, and the customers is of utmost importance. So to tackle that, one of the things we did was we were actually one of the first companies in the region to get all our staff vaccinated early in December. Then besides that, we had a lot of health managers in our warehouse camps checking temperatures, doing COVID tests regularly, making sure our stores are sanitized. So there was a lot of work that went behind that. But I think it paid off, and I think it's important when you're doing that kind of service, it's important that you don't only look at the money side of it, but you also look at the other side of it. And I think our team did extremely well dealing with COVID. A lot of the thoughts that we had about how business should be run was broken. We used to have online meetings, monthly meetings, every month calling all our branch managers to our head office. We're like, no more, everything's on Zoom. We had some initiatives where when our stores were shut, we actually started having Zoom calls with our customers in our stores where our salesperson would take a virtual walkthrough of our stores. We launched the virtual reality of our store online. So a lot of things happened quickly, and it just made us stronger and more resilient.
Very interesting. Very quickly, I want your one word of advice to the next generation of business leaders. What is your one piece of advice to them?
One thing I've learned is a lot of young people, they have a lot of good ideas, and there's nothing wrong in that. But I see a lack in implementation and sense of urgency. So my advice to them is, it's good to think and talk about big things and seeing what's happening. But what's most important is get started with it. Try something new. It's okay to fail. It's okay to try and get things done today. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for day after. Because by that time, there's always going to be a new wave of businesses. So sense of urgency is, I think, the most important thing that's lacking, and that people of the next gen should focus on.
Okay, I can share from my experience. We are full of ideas as well. I think we probably, because I've got two older brothers, the three of us combined probably come up with each idea every day. And those ideas, and those are the areas we want to do it every day. So number one is, what I've learned is go slow, have viable ideas. Most important is have discipline and time management. So these are the two things I've learned from my father. And I've also learned now that if you've got 365 ideas, focus on one. And that's what I did. And I want to actually share this. The acquisition that we did in Russia, we didn't even visit Russia. I've never visited Russia. We did the entire deal through Zoom, including inspecting the infrastructure, the factories, meeting the people, doing everything online. And once we signed the deal, that's when I flew down. So it's about taking risk, but it's also talking about to follow your gut. So we are very, very proud of this acquisition, and we hope that we are able to close many more deals in future.
That is incredibly impressive. Ladies and gentlemen, two very outstanding individuals. It's been a great pleasure speaking with you. Varun and Adel, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for our panel there.
Thanks.